Hello and good morning, everybody. I did want to get up a quick beginning of July garden urban homestead tour. Haven't done one since the beginning of June. If you haven't seen that, I was just actually watching it because I shared it to somebody. I will put it in the description and also in the eye in the sky. A lot has changed since my last garden tour, so I'm very excited. I'm also going to show you, I'm curing some garlic and some onions, and I want to kind of show you what I'm doing with that, as well as how I preserve some of my herbs. Here's kind of an overview of our raised bed area. I will cover that first. And then we also do have an herb garden along the side of the house. I guess I'll just show you that first. So this herb garden hasn't been doing really well. I don't think these are gonna grow. I think, is that borage? I think I do have some borage. Most of it's doing pretty well. This is some savory. This is doing so well, actually. This oregano is doing well. These I all started from seed. Pretty happy with that. Here is some rosemary. This is some cilantro that is, as you can see, it's going to seed. It's just so warm out. And then over here, I have some thyme. It's kind of hard to tell, but it's doing pretty well. Over here, I've got some dill. It's doing super well. And then I also have some more I started over here, just kind of in succession. I pretty much succession sow as much as I can. Here is my borage plant. And then these are some borage seedlings. Then I have a calendula. I wouldn't recommend planting calendula or chamomile in the shade. You'll see some of my calendula in other areas, and you'll see that this one does not look even close to what those look like. I'm at the far side of my garden here. I bought clearance potatoes. Basically, their roots were coming out of the bag, but I figured, you know what, worst case, they don't work. And as you can see, they did work. Hopefully they grow some good potatoes. I do have potatoes in other areas of my garden as well. I really am hoping to get about 100 pounds of potatoes this year. I have some flowers kind of in every corner of my garden. There's tons of weeds. We bought 5 yards of soil delivered from a local company. There's been a ton of this weed and then grass seed in it. So that's honestly been one of my biggest struggles with this dirt. I can't even like go through and do this tour video without weeding, which I really, sorry. Okay, carrying on. This bed does get quite a bit of shade. It probably gets at least 6 to 8 hours of sun, so it is technically full sun, but it does also get a little shade. So this is a watermelon plant I bought from the farmer's market from a local farmer. I didn't have anywhere to put it. This spot was open. We're just kind of hoping, this is kind of like my chill area. It gets a little bit of shade. Hopefully these will just kind of grow out here. I have some Wisconsin native plants in here. I think this one is hyssop. Yep. Got some hyssop, which is starting to flower. I think that's wild bergamot, lavender. This is some celery. And then this is a hot pepper that I just transplanted. This is kind of my most successful pepper bed because my dog, I thought it was squirrels. It was my dog digging up all of my pepper plants because she wanted to get at the fertilizer. I've got sweet and hot in here. Some of these are brand new and just were planted, so they're gonna go through a little bit of transplant shock. I have some cilantro in here. And some celery, basil. I gotta pick this basil. I've been making a lot of pesto and freezing that just because I can't eat it all, but I don't want these plants. Once they bolt, they're kind of no good, so I just keep harvesting so they don't totally bolt. And then we just have some tomatoes in here. I opted to go with these 6-foot T-posts, and they just have these nubs. And I bought them specifically to trellis tomatoes. I find tomato cages, especially for indeterminate varieties, just a waste of time. So I'm doing this year. I think these posts were $5 or $6 a piece. Probably what a decent tomato cage is gonna cost. Pretty happy with that. Then I've got some nasturtium. This bed is just not doing well, and I don't know why. I do have some onions in here, but as you'll see my other onions, these are just not doing well. I honestly might just pull them out and plant something else. The potatoes are doing pretty well in this bed, though. There's some potatoes coming up in this corner. All right, my next beds are kind of a hodgepodge. I need to cover these cabbages because the cabbage moths, as you can see with the holes, have found them. I have a ton of peas. I actually kind of heard that you can just basically dump like a ton of peas in like a trench and grow them, and that's, oh, here goes the central air. I dumped in a bunch of peas and it worked out really well. The peas are kind of at the end of their lifespan here. And then here I do have old cloth on here, but I don't think my cabbages are loving that they're so covered. So I did buy new stuff. I just got to deal with it because they're looking pretty dry. Then we have some lettuce. I'm gonna have to harvest this lettuce. It's called slow bolt, but it still bolts pretty quickly. Then we've got carrots in the middle. Over here, I have a bunch of lettuce. This lettuce is so bitter. It's too hot to grow lettuce. I've pretty much just been tearing it off and feeding it to the chickens. That's the only reason it's still here. And then some Swiss chard. This is the chamomile that I moved. It was terrible looking, but I'm having such a hard time with aphids on my chamomile. Can you guys see? There's just so many aphids. This is some lemon thyme from last year. I have a couple carrots in here that are pretty much ready to be harvested. And then just some Swiss chard. In here, this is a dahlia, tomato plant, and then a bunch of carrots. I do have carrots. I need to plant some more actually because I like to succession sow them just so I can keep getting a harvest. This bed I pretty much just harvested. I have some cabbage plants. I really need to mulch in here because this heat is just killing them. But these cabbage plants I got for super cheap. We'll see if they work out. I don't know if they will. There is some calendula, and some more peas, and a blasphemous cabbage moth. Here is a cayenne. This was one of my garlic beds. I'll show you guys where I'm curing and how I'm curing my garlic a little bit later. A couple of carrots. I really want to top these beds off before I plant anything else. And I've got some kale. This kale's been pretty destroyed by cabbage moths. Do you mind? Can you eat this kale? I don't like this kale as much. Eat this one. You keep eating my dino kale. Everything that I plant in this bag does not do well. I did just transplant this, so that might be part of why it's not so happy. I'm plucking these flowers off because a plant this small should not be putting energy into flowering. I don't think it's even gonna make it, but worth a shot. All right, I don't know what these are. We're gonna find out together. I have them, I'm training them up here. The roots got a little bit disturbed when I picked my garlic, so I'm hoping that they'll make it. I gotta water these again to help their roots establish. I think it's a melon. They look like a melon, so we'll see if they're trellisable. I have no idea. We'll find out together. Here's some more kale. This kale is mostly just for my chickens because I don't really like it that much. And then I just pick it so it doesn't crowd out other stuff growing in here. The chickens are pretty hot, so I don't know if they're gonna eat it or not. Hi, Daisy. You want some? Yeah, they know when I walk over that I probably have something for them. Here you go. Enjoy some kale. And then I did put some pepper plants over here. I should probably take this fruit off because I did just transplant this and really it should be focusing on rooting, but whatever, don't care. And I do have some green beans in here as well. This is my cucumber bed. And these I think are pickles. These are like bush pickles right here. These are black beans, which look really sad. I'm not really sure why. I think these are bush varieties of cucumbers, and then these are vining varieties. If you look at my last month's video, this bed was completely bare because I had planted seeds. So over here I have, this is a watermelon bed, and I bought these 2 watermelon plants as well because I had planted a ton of seeds in here and none of them grew until after I planted these transplants. And this tiny, you can't even tell because it's gonna get swarmed. This is a sugar baby, this little guy right here. And then these are just big watermelons. So I'm just training them to come out of the bed like this, and they'll just kind of grow in this area towards the compost here. This is our chick brooder that we just cleaned out. I use this pitchfork to stir the compost pile. It's looking pretty dry. I should probably water it, but it's supposed to rain today, so I'll have to look into that. And then I have, this is another, I think this is a sugar baby that I started from seed. And then these 3 are cantaloupe. So same thing, same idea. Just gonna train these to grow out into the yard. And then my herb garden, this is lavender, oregano, which I don't want it to go to seed. I might, yeah, they're thinking about flowering. So I'm gonna harvest some of this just so it keeps going. One thing I've learned about herbs is that you wanna keep harvesting them to prevent them from going to seed. So that's kind of what I've been doing. These are some sunflowers. I don't even know if that was a good idea, but whatever. My bay tree, my lemon balm is doing so much better. I really struggled. I think I had planted it too deep and it was kind of struggling. And here is my basil, which is really, it's thinking about going to seed, I can tell. So I'm gonna harvest a bunch of this. Can you tell in here I harvest it quite often. It just grows back like a weed. It's pretty great. My purple basil hasn't been doing as well. Thai basil, parsley. This is kind of the crappiest looking area of my garden. All of this is just a work in progress. You know, I'm trying to work with what I can. I tried not to spend a lot of money this year. These are some pepper plants. This is, something was digging in here. This is mojito mint. These are some onions, pepper plant, basil, celery. This is some sort of mint, potatoes, more mint. Catnip. Catnip and mint can become really invasive, so I made sure to plant them in buckets. What is this one? I think I have orange mint, chocolate mint, and apple mint, and then mint mojito. All right, so that's most of that area. Oh yeah, I have a pumpkin patch back here, which I intended to be an asparagus patch, but the asparagus never came up. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna plant pumpkins over it. Worst case, the asparagus comes up. The asparagus never came up, so I'm really glad that I planted this. So this is gonna be the pumpkin patch area. It's kind of like my shed area. I don't really have a shed. I've actually been using the bottom of the kids' old swing set as my shed area because we don't have a shed or a barn or whatever whatever people in the country would be able to use. I have these 2 small ones right here. These are pie pumpkins. And then this is 2 jack-o'-lanterns. And that's another jack-o'-lantern. So these are gonna take up this whole area. It's gonna be very interesting. And this is my favorite part of my yard. This is my in-ground garden. I absolutely love it so much. I eventually do want to make like a proper perimeter, but like I said, I'm just trying to make it simple this year because I spent so much time on my garden this year. Here I have some bachelor buttons, which are just like the prettiest flowers. This is an edible flower. You can eat them on salads, but it's so prolific. I think this was 2 plants, and you can see there's tons of blossoms on here. This is some mullein that is just growing, and I let it because mullein is a medicinal plant. In here I have all potatoes. In the buckets I've got all potatoes. In those bags I've got all potatoes. These are some volunteer tomatoes that are coming up in my onion bed. I'm just letting them. I did thin them out quite a bit. I have no idea what the variety is, so I think they're San Marzanos, but I'm not 100% sure. And you can see I've got onions in here. I think I'm actually gonna mulch this area a little bit better just to protect the onions, but they are really bulbing out. They are looking really good. Then in the end of this, I have some celery, more celery, and then another onion bed. Tomato, these are all black beans. These are black turtle beans. This is my butte. Look at this guy. This is my beautiful sunflower. I had no idea when I planted these that they would have multiple heads because I'm so used to planting like mammoths. So I was very excited about that. This is by far my biggest one, but I have multiple of these planted in my garden. Oh, wow. Oh, cool. Look at that. This one is just opening up. That is just gorgeous. Wow. So these are really neat with their multiple heads. Here's another one. This one's not thinking about opening yet. That's a volunteer tomato plant that I'm just letting do its thing. This is sage. I have harvested so much of this sage. Do not plant sage in a garden bed. This is from my raised bed that I had years and years ago, and I pulled it out, or so I thought, and it just keeps coming back. So I just try to heavily prune it just so it stays this size. Oh wow, are these turning red? This was a sucker. I basically pruned another tomato plant and I rooted this, so I should have taken the fruit off, but I didn't, so maybe that'll work out. Here's a calendula plant. This is kind of what I was telling you guys about. Like, this calendula was planted the same time as that one over in my herb garden, and as you can see, it's doing very well. This is a potato bed. These are some of my first potatoes planted. They were done flowering. Some of them are flowering a little bit, so these should be ready to harvest probably within maybe a month or so. I'm not really sure. Next up, I'm doing a 3 sisters type of situation here, which is kind of a Native American way of planting things, a very indigenous practice. I have squash that are coming up the trellis. These are loofahs. I'm very excited. They are looking really good. I really would love to harvest loofahs and be able to use those. And then I've got corn, and I have beans interplanted as well. So that's kind of what the 3 sisters is corn, beans, and squash. I also have some green beans that are climbing up here. So these are looking really good. I don't know what this is. I don't remember. It's probably some sort of squash. This area, I have to keep laying more cardboard because the weeds are coming up, but this is eventually going to be all garden. This is a blueberry plant that I've had from last year. I've never gotten fruit off of it. I don't know if it will fruit. I have no idea what I'm doing with that. Here I've got some more squash. I have spaghetti squash. This is a buttercup squash. And this one down here, I believe, is also a buttercup squash, but it's getting shaded out by these bigger guys. And then this one, I don't know what this one is. This one claims it's golden delicious. And then over here, I have summer squash. So this is zucchini, little baby zucchinis. This guy's just sad. The ones that I bought elsewhere are not doing well. Like, they're just, I don't know what's going on with them, but they're just not well. And then the ones that I planted from seed are doing well. Here's another zucchini, that one as well. This is my daughter's strawberry bed, which really needs water. This is my extremely sad pepper bed. I planted potatoes here last year, and I'm kind of finding that I should not have planted peppers after that. So I might honestly pull these all up just because they're not doing very well, and it's kind of a waste of space. I have another calendula. I tried to do a lot more flowers this year, and other than the sunflowers, I don't know if these sunflowers make seeds, honestly. Oh, look at a little happy bee. Where'd he go? Sorry, I scared you. I pretty much try to anything that I plant in my garden, for the most part, there are a couple like pretty flowers that I planted, but for the most part, I really wanted to have edible or medicinal plants. Here's that sunflower. I've got I try to do a lot of flowers just on the edges just for pollinating purposes. I love sunflowers. So I have pretty much all tomatoes in here. None of them are really turning red yet, which kind of stinks, but I have like Viva Italia, Roma, and then I have a ton of different varieties in here. That is kind of what's happening in here. Just 4 rows of tomatoes. We eat a lot of tomato products. I preserve a lot of tomatoes, and we eat a lot of them fresh, so that's why I have so many tomatoes. Pretty much all that's in here. I do have some interplanted lettuce, but I also have some baby bunnies living in my garden. The baby bunnies have been munching on my lettuce, which is fine. I'm okay with that. I think I'm mostly excited about these Tigerella. Like, they're gonna be a really cool striped tomato, so that'll be interesting. You can tell that I'm super sweaty. I'm like dripping. It's just so hot and humid, honestly. I'm gonna take you guys inside and show you my curing / drying situation that I use for herbs and garlic. Here is in my garage. It looks like a garage because it is, so it's kind of a hot mess. This is how I am drying my garlic. I have a fan propped up there, and here's all of our garlic. These are some onion sets that I decided to dry because they didn't get very big. What this is I have 2 sawhorses, and then this wood thing is an old crib. Like, we actually utilize this crib for a lot of stuff. The other piece we use for drying socks in the basement, because we hang dry everything. And then since these slats were too big, we put chicken wire over the top, and then we just poked the garlic in here, and it worked really well. I think we got about just under 80 heads of garlic. Look at these elephant garlics. Like, holy cow. Like, I have tiny hands, but still, like, that's still a huge garlic. So we're just curing these in here in a dark, warm place with some sort of air, which is a fan. So probably 2 to 4 weeks, and this stuff will be cured. It's already looking pretty dry, surprisingly. That is how we cure our garlic, and how we will also probably cure our onions. We might have to lay the onions or hang them, just because, like, we couldn't even fit these in the chicken wire. But the onions actually might be able to fit in these slats. I have this string under here. This is where I will hang herbs. I like to hang dry herbs versus dehydrating them, and then once they're dry, I put them in jars. So these jars are actually marinara, like organic marinara from Aldi. As you can see, all the red tops, I use them a lot. My husband used to make fun of me until he realized how helpful they are. This is all stuff from the garden. I've already hung so much sage, so I'm gonna just keep hanging and drying, and then we'll give some to my dad if he wants some of that as well. So that is kind of one of my drying areas. And here's my more unsightly way of doing this, but it is what it is. So I did have some sage drying. This honestly might be ready to put into jars. I just had to move it because I had to hang some other stuff. And then I pretty much have a hodgepodge of stuff in here. This is pretty much all herbs that I dry in here, just because I don't want to dry them with heat. So I think this is mint, and then I have chamomile in here, and then those are dandelion greens in the back. So I pretty much just dry stuff in here. I always have a ceiling fan on in this area as well. It is a little bit bright over here, which isn't exactly ideal, but this is kind of the only space we have. I might actually have Charlie put this in the garage, because
no, the garage is cold.
The garage is actually really warm, and there's a fan in there, so I might have him move that, just because honestly I'm kind of sick of looking at it. It's so big, but it's really helpful.